It's the dream of every cricketer, the ultimate glory. Few manage to keep their date with destiny. But for many, it's been heartbreaks and a cross to bear. The Holy Grail is here in India. I'm Rupha Ramani, and Firstpost brings you the ringside view. We bring you the Cup of Dreams. Cricket World Cup coverage like never before.
The champion! It's over! He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net.
Nice one.
Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams here today.
I am Rupha Ramani, and you're watching Firstpost. Now, personalities define a team. They also make the sport that much richer. If the success of a sport truly lies in the numbers and the performances, then the growth of that sport depends on the fans. And it's these characters who draw the passionate fan into the sport. Even as the sand settles in on the Wankhede pitch after that Glenn Maxwell miracle whirlwind knock, the question is, are the Aussies India's real big threat this World Cup? And what makes Australia such a potent side every World Cup? And speaking of characters, Erling Haaland is growing into becoming one. What is it about his personality and his skills that make him a star, a legend in the making? Stick around to know more, but first, a look at our headlines in Sports 360. Starting with the ICC Cricket World Cup, England's Ben Stokes scored 108 runs in yesterday's win against the Netherlands. He has become the first English player to score more than 10,000 runs and take over 100 wickets in international cricket by doing so. Stokes now joins an elite list of only 5 other players who have managed to do this. In other cricket news, the captain of Australia's women's team, Meg Lanning, has announced her retirement. The 31-year-old has shocked fans worldwide with her sudden announcement. The all-rounder was picked to lead the Aussie women's team in 2014. Lanning has won 7 World Cup titles and has played 241 matches for Australia in her 13-year-long career. Indian player PV Sindhu has been granted a protected ranking by the Badminton World Federation. This is after she suffered a knee injury in October. Sindhu, who's currently ranked world number 10, will remain at the spot until she's fit to play again. However, the protected ranking will only be in place for the next 12 months. Over in football, German giants Bayern Munich beat Turkish side Galatasaray 2-1 in yesterday's match. Striker Harry Kane fired a double in the second half for Bayern. Galatasaray attempted a comeback with a goal in the second half injury time but fell short of a draw. Bayern have now entered the knockout stages of the Champions League. In other news, armed individuals raided Brazilian footballer Neymar's apartment in Sao Paulo. The gunmen attempted to kidnap Neymar's partner and his newborn daughter. They were unsuccessful in their kidnapping attempt after police officials rushed to Neymar's house. But the suspects, who are still at large, managed to steal money, purses and jewelry. Who can be India's biggest threat among the top 4 currently? Who has the firepower and the resilience to stop the Indian juggernaut at the Cricket World Cup? We thought it would be South Africa, but the destructive batting lineup were demolished by India in Kolkata, and many would still be bruised with that face-off. We thought New Zealand possibly, given the daunting ODI World Cup record that they share. Having got the better of India on the world stage repeatedly, they were stopped in their clinical tracks by a performance in Dharamshala. The Kiwis put up quite a fight but were still found wanting. India's biggest threat could come from the team in yellow, Australia. The closest India had in fact come to being tested in this tournament so far was in fact in their opening match in India's Chennai against the Aussies. And after a very slow start that stumbled and stuttered like a vintage car that is suddenly facing the onslaught of modern-day traffic, the team from Down Under shifted gears rather smoothly to hum at the right note during the crucial phase of the tournament. Let's look at some of the key weapons in their arsenal who could prove to be lethal in the attack. First up, I have to honour the near Lone Ranger in the bowling unit. This lad has almost single-handedly shouldered the responsibility of denting the opposition batting lineups. Adam Zampa. He has been prolific in the ODI format. Though the pacers in the department were coming in with the prospect of guns blazing and were carrying the pedigree to instill fear, it's actually been Adam Zampa who has done most of the damage for this side. Zampa is the only spinner in that top 5 list. That says something. With 20 wickets to his name and an economy of under 6, he has been instrumental in giving Australia a leg up over opponents in key encounters. And with those 20 scalps, he has achieved a unique and rather special record. He has equalled Shane Warne's 20 wickets in 1999, the second highest wickets by an Aussie spinner in ODI World Cup history. And not just that, he is 4th on the list of most wickets taken by a spinner in ODI World Cups. Undoubtedly, Muttiah Muralidharan sits at the top with 23 that he took in 2007. Shahid Afridi had a pivotal 2011 edition. Pakistan had a great run till they were stopped by India, of course. Brad Hogg in a monumental unbeaten winning streak year of Australia, the last time in fact that they or any other team would do that at a World Cup without losing a single match. Shane Warne's 20 in 1999 and now of course Zampa. Now if Zampa has been their talisman with the ball, the batter who has really stolen the show this World Cup has been Glenn Maxwell. His unbeaten 201 will be talked of in fact for ages to come. Everyone who witnessed the knock at the Wankhede in Mumbai will live to retell the glorious comeback knock that Maxwell displayed to take Australia into the semi-final. In the most memorable fashion, that too. Hailed now as the greatest ever knock in ODI World Cups, Maxwell was outstanding last night. First, he shattered any critic who was still questioning his commitment or consistency with this blistering performance. And second, he absolutely relied on nothing but his arm strength to carry him through once he started cramping. To think this man fell off a golf cart to get concussed enough to miss a game and then come in to bail Australia next out in the manner in which he had was just incredible. Maybe all that striking on the golf course in Ahmedabad truly helped. And the numbers and records he shattered have been well documented, but just look at the elite company he stands alongside. When it comes to double tons in world cricket, Rohit Sharma, Sachin Tendulkar, Shubman Gill, Sehwag, Gale, Fakhar Zaman, the list is envious. Of course, Rohit completed that feat twice over after that, but seriously, just the stature of that is compelling enough to tell you just how awesome Glenn Maxwell has been in this edition of the World Cup. And there have also been some others who have risen to the occasion in a timely manner to chip in when required. Like David Warner, started rather quietly but has really come into his own. He has contributed with some key knocks, and especially in the absence of an unwell Steve Smith, the responsibility as a senior hand in that batting lineup clearly falls on him. Travis Head came back strongly after recovering from an injury that he had picked up during the series against the Proteas, to show that he is very much present and with great intent. Pat Cummins, as the inspirational leader, seems to be filling in the shoes left by many who have led admirably as captains rather wonderfully. The team has drawn inspiration from their legacy and experience to try and make things work. The biggest hurdle next up will be South Africa, a team that beat them in a series recently before heading to the World Cup. The 5-time world champions cannot be taken all too lightly in this edition. And joining me today to talk about the Aussie firepower is someone who has himself been part of that setup. He has been part of a World Cup winning squad. Yes, and of course, he's also the coach of one of the most successful franchises in the Indian Premier League, the Chennai Super Kings, is Michael Hussey. Michael, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us here this evening.
No worries. Pleasure to be on the show. And yeah, it's good to catch up after a long time.
All right, the first question I have to ask you, we have to speak about Glenn Maxwell. Did you manage to, watch that knock? Everyone, of course, is talking about that being one of the best knocks in ODI World Cup history.
Well, I wish I could say I watched it, but I was trying to keep my eyes open for as long as I possibly could. I lasted until just after Josh Inglis got out. So Maxwell was just getting started. He must have been on about 15 or 20, and then that's the last thing I remember. So I was feeling a little bit despondent at that stage, fell asleep, and I woke up in the morning and I checked the scores and I thought, no, there must be some mistake. This couldn't have happened, and obviously watched the highlights which is pretty much all of his innings. And what an incredible performance. Especially with him going through so much pain with the cramping and everything, the situation of the game, got Australia in dire straits. It's got to go down as one of the greatest of all time. Whether it's the greatest, we could argue that probably for the next year. I think the only argument I'd put forward was that, say Ricky Ponting made a massive 100 in a World Cup final to help Australia win. Adam Gilchrist made 149 in a World Cup final. Yeah. Does that make the more special? I don't know, but I tell you what, it's got to be right up there with one of the greatest performances of all time.
You have been part of World Cup winning squads yourself. What is it about an Aussie side, Huss, that you really can never discount them? You can never, ever underestimate an Australian team in a World Cup. What is it about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I think obviously you need to have a good squad to start with, and I think Australia has got another very good squad. So that sort of helps. And then I think one thing Australian teams have done well in the past has just built momentum as the tournament's gone along. It's tournament play. So quite often, and it showed in this campaign as well. Australia started slowly, losing the first two games quite badly, and people were starting to write them off. But they've just slowly built their form and got better and better as the tournament's gone on. Now, the game against Afghanistan was far from perfect. So Maxwell certainly pulled Australia out of a pretty deep hole there. So that certainly wasn't, the same sort of trajectory. Yeah. So I think they'll be looking for a really strong performance against Bangladesh leading into that semi-final against South Africa. But, generally Australian teams are very passionate about playing for Australia. Like most countries, prepare very well for every single game. Very competitive teams. We love to win. That's part of our sort of DNA. And then, just sort of always seem to have a great camaraderie around the group as well. Everyone seems to get on really well and are moving in the same direction. So I certainly see a lot of those traits in this current team as well.
You speak about camaraderie, Huss. How important is that for the Aussie setup, especially in such a tournament? We saw them always being in smiles, even when they didn't really start off that well.
I think it's important. Most definitely. They spend so much time together over the course of the whole year, but this is a special tournament. So, they'll come together, spend a lot of time together, get to know each other really well. But I think they'll understand that everyone's a bit different as well. And I think the good teams sort of embrace that sort of the differences in a team. There's not going to be the same personalities in any team. And, look at the Australian team. There's lots of different quirky personalities in there. But I get the feeling in the sense that they're embraced for who they are. And I think that's really important, particularly when you're away in a place like India for such a long period of time. It's got to be challenging. So you've got to try and stick together. And I'd say generally the Aussie sort of culture is to sort of really stick tight together. Even when things are getting tough, that's when we get tighter and tighter as a group. And, this team has certainly done that as well.
Going by the way they look so far in the tournament, we always have seen there's a bit of a gap between India and much of the rest, at least some of the best in this tournament so far. They really look like the strongest side has India. But do you reckon Australia is up there to contest for them as one of the contenders for the title?
Yeah, well, India have been incredible. They really have. The squad looks amazing. You talk about a team enjoying themselves. They look like they're absolutely loving it out there. And that was my big question coming into the tournament was, how are they going to handle that home crowd pressure? Playing, in front of their home crowd. They look like they're loving it. That they're just getting out there. They look confident. They're laughing. They're really enjoying each other's company. And I think that's pretty scary for the whole competition because the skills there, and they really are playing, a fantastic brand of cricket. Yeah. But again, another question pops its head up. Semi-final, it's a knockout game. Does that change them at all? I'm not willing to say it will because I think this Indian team, they're just loving how they're playing their cricket at the moment. And I don't think they'll even care if it's a knockout game or a pool game. I think they'll still go out there and play that same brand of cricket. But it still needs to be answered. And I think the other teams, whether it's New Zealand, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Australia, whether it's someone else, that they'll be trying to start well against India and just try and create a little bit of doubt, thinking, okay, there is more pressure now because it is a knockout match. That they're already qualified, they're through to finish on top, there's no pressure. Suddenly it comes to a semi-final or a final and you lose, or you have one bad day, or you're just off your best and the other team plays a little bit better and you're on your way home. So that's the question that I'm looking forward to seeing them answer. I think they can. They've got the quality to do it, but it still needs to be answered.
Yeah, and speaking of Australia there, what would you reckon have been the biggest strengths or the biggest reasons for them to have gotten so far and gotten at this position that they're in?
Well, I think the form of some of the top order players has been very good. Like, obviously, Warner's had a very good tournament. Travis Head, since coming back from injury, has done a pretty good job, obviously getting that 100. Mitch Marsh has played well in the top three. Probably the middle order at times have just battled a little bit. Steve Smith has not really sort of found form yet, and I say yet. Marnus Labuschagne's done a decent job. But then I think the strength of the bowling, that they've done a good job as well, and some very good flat pitches. Obviously Adam Zampa has probably been the standout, but he's been very well supported by the old warriors, really, Cummins, Stark and Hazelwood. And then, they've got a bit of all-round power there as well, just to sort of chip in when needed. Mitch Marsh helping out with the ball. Stoinis can help out with the ball. Travis Head. So there's plenty of options there for Pat Cummins at his disposal. So it's a very well-rounded team. But, yeah, I think they all started a little bit slow and a little bit flat, but they've just built their form nicely throughout the tournament.
You mentioned Pat Cummins there, Huss. Tell us a bit about his captaincy. What have you liked about him? Because it isn't easy managing skippers in the side as well. He's leading them, a couple of them. Tell us a bit about him temperamentally or tactically that you've liked.
Well, I think he's just a great character, and he would have been as disappointed as anyone at the start of the tournament when Australia lost those two matches. But I know he wouldn't have panicked. He would have remained calm. He would have definitely tapped into the experience of those other captains that you talked about. Certainly Steve Smith. He would have tapped into David Warner's experience as well. A lot, some of these guys have played a lot of cricket in India, and then he would have, really tried to galvanise the team and bring them together. And I thought it was very interesting listening to Glenn Maxwell talk after his epic innings. He said when Pat Cummins came out, he had a real calmness about him, and he just they had a little plan of how they were going to try and get through it, and I think that's important as well. So Pat is a very good character. He's calm, he's measured, he doesn't panic, he's not emotional, as in when things are going well, he's going to get too carried away, but if things aren't going so well, he doesn't get too low and down in the dumps either, and I think that's really important for any leader.
Yes, all of things really shaping well for that Australian side. You can never take them too lightly, again, reiterating that. Thank you so much, Mike Hussey, for joining us. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.
No worries. Thank you very much.
All right, let's talk football and one superstar in the making. He may have missed out on the Ballon d'Or, but remains unabashedly unbothered by it. I'm talking, of course, of the Norwegian dynamo, who is the flavour of football currently, with that lock of silver grey hair and a stature of a warrior. If his goal-scoring abilities won't, then his physique is sure to give the opposition sleepless nights before match day. We are, of course, speaking of Erling Haaland. The 23-year-old has fans all over the world. In fact, apparently amongst his peers too. Just last evening, the captain of the opposition, Mohammad Ali Kamara of Young Boys team, requested Haaland to give him his T-shirt at half-time. And of course, Haaland obliged. The Ballon d'Or snub doesn't shake him. Instead, it fuels his fire to do better than before. In the coming years, it will be impossible to deny him that accolade. The recipient of the award has definitely set the bar high, but Haaland remains undaunted. For him, it's not a question of if he'll win it, it's more about when he'll win it. What makes him a superstar? Take a look.
When it comes to dismantling defences and blazing through the field, the only name that comes to everybody's mind is Man City's Erling Haaland. The mere sight of him is enough to make the goalies tremble. Ballon d'Or is often regarded as the pinnacle of achievement in football. Haaland might have missed out on it this year by just a bit to World Cup winning captain Lionel Messi, but he remains unfazed and unflinched by that. His football journey has just begun, and his drive to succeed at just 23 is worth taking note of. After all, he continues to find the net from every angle. Man City's latest match against the Young Boys saw him do the same. The game was played at Man City's home ground, the Etihad Stadium, where the Sky Blues trounced Swiss club Young Boys 3-0, and Erling Haaland fired in a double in that match. Here's a look at his 2023-24 season so far. Haaland has made 11 appearances for Manchester City and scored 11 goals. Now that is pure excellence. In the UEFA Champions League, he has scored in all the 4 matches. These figures are indicative of one who has no intention of slowing down, whether it's domestic league or international competitions. Well, if you thought that was comprehensive enough, there's more. Let's take a look at the records Haaland made just last year. He scored 36 goals in a single Premier League season. That's the most any player has ever netted. Haaland's 52 is the most number of goals scored by any Manchester City player across all competitions in a single season. All these achievements highlight that a Ballon d'Or is well within his reach. It is important to remember that he's just getting started. Maybe him missing the golden ball this year will ignite in him a spark that could take him to unparalleled heights in the years to come. The broader picture here is the kind of impact he has on fans already. He was nominated in a list that has superstars of the sport like Messi, Neymar and so on. While they are already some of the established names in the business, Haaland is also entering that elite realm and making heads turn. Not just by his shock of silver hair, but his skills and consistent accuracy that is an asset. His consistency is at par with some of the biggest names in football. But beyond the presence of a 6 feet tall, terrifying striker who has taken the football world by storm, is a playful, goofy personality that makes him a beloved figure. He's unfiltered, infectious and humorous. He doesn't seem to take himself too seriously. His playful banter during training sessions and harmless pranks are what make him the heartthrob of the team. And maybe it is that mix of the laid-back character of the pitch, coupled with the intense go-getter that he is on the field, that sets for a perfect star in the making.
Now is the time for our parting shot called The Last Serve. Now, Pakistani cricketer Haris Rauf's sweet gesture has stormed the internet. His fans are in awe as the cricketer was seen picking up garbage at the Kolkata airport. A good Samaritan, that Haris Rauf. But that wraps up our edition of Firstpost today. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. But I'll see you again tomorrow here at 7 p.m. As always, our Cup of Dreams journey reaching its fast stages end here on Firstpost. So don't miss that as well. But I'll see you tomorrow. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. It's the dream of every cricketer. The ultimate glory. Few manage to keep their date with destiny. But for many, it's been heartbreaks and a cross to bear. The Holy Grail is here in India. I'm Rupha Ramani and Firstpost brings you the ringside view. We bring you the Cup of Dreams. Cricket World Cup coverage like never before.